Good evening, one. Good evening, all. And just as I say that, Billy Bob has woken up off the sofa, and here he is.
As if by magic, he has
Police
awoken.
Academy. Yeah, I was watching Police Academy and forgot to bleed time.
Well, that's professionalism for you.
2, I think it is.
Nice.
Well, he's here anyway. Good evening, everybody. Well, it doesn't really matter. Stato is not with us tonight. He's over in Poland, but we'll be back early next week. So it's me, Paul, it's Billy, and of course, Lady Sam tonight. Thank you very much for tuning into the show. As usual, if you do enjoy it, give it the thumbs up. Don't forget, guys, because it is important to the channel. And of course, if you're new and you like what you see, come and subscribe. It is free to do so. Hit that bell so you never miss an upload or a live show. You can support the channel in 2 ways, of course. First is by membership, hitting that join button just underneath us. And, of course, Super Chat, which is the $ at the bottom of the live chat. And if you do Super Chat, that will guarantee your comment to be read out on the show, just as Roadblock has just before the show started. Thank you, mate. Tenali primo assisto magnifico is the words.
Oh, wasn't it just?
I mean, it was sensational, to be honest.
Sexy.
And by the way, I noticed that people were putting, the usual suspects putting out who was England's man of the match last night. And Anthony Gordon wasn't mentioned, which I thought was astounding, considering how much he transforms that left-hand side for England. But tonight is all about a discussion. And a disclaimer before we start. It's in the description as well. This is very much just a fan discussion, okay? We are not in the know, and we have no idea if there is any ructions going on or a power struggle behind the scenes. This is just all the reports that have come out in the last week or so when we've all been sort of, the shows haven't been regular because it's obviously international break. But tonight I wanted to have a discussion with you, the viewers, and of course with us on screen as well about what we think is going on. So we haven't a clue. This is just generally a fan discussion about what we think or what ideas are going through our heads as fans right now. So before anybody comes on and says, all is rosy and you never know. No, we don't know. It's a fan discussion at the end of the day. So I just wanted to get that across to everybody before we get cracking on it. But there has just been a very interesting report on social media thinking, apparently that Paul Mitchell's job is on the line already. I don't know whether you guys have seen that report. It's it's a little bit bizarre for me. And apparently, not that we're bothered how Dan Ashworth feels, but apparently Ashworth, Amanda, Mirdad, Steve Nixon, they're all a little bit perplexed about what Steve Mitchell meant about the transfer policy being, not good enough, basically, is what he said. Yes, he also was talking about PSRs not fit for purpose, but he also was talking about the system that he walked into and said it was completely wrong. Now, obviously, it's ruffled a few feathers, Billy, clearly. So was Mitchell right to step out and say what he did? Does he have a right to come out and tell us fans that he thinks it wasn't all rosy and things needed changing?
Well, we all wanted transparency, and Paul Mitchell came out and gave it to us in spades, didn't he? So I think he's got every right to say what he said. If he's not happy with how things were and he wants to improve the club, then he's got to say what he wants to say. So we can only look at it through, there's no facts involved in what we're saying. It's just opinions, really. Yeah. The fact that people were having a go at him for being transparent when 24 hours earlier they were saying we wanted transparency was, to me, beggared belief.
Yeah, it's a good point, that, isn't it, Sam? Because we were all as Newcastle fans saying since the closure of the transfer window, we want somebody to come out and explain to us what the hell went wrong or what was the ideas behind what they did, certainly with the gay situation. And, Mitchell was very adamant that Eddie Howe wanted Gahey and nobody else. He said that in his interview. But obviously it's ruffled feathers. And Steve Nixon, of course, is still there. Now, he's apparently not, I said this in the news show the other day, that he apparently is not happy with his new role or his demotion a little bit. He's not going to play a big part anymore in the transfers to what he used to, but he's going to toe the line and get on with the new system. What do you think should happen? Do you think it is Paul Mitchell's right to come out and do that? He's in a very high position. For me, he's got every right to come out and say what he thought was wrong. What I'm trying to say is it probably to his eyes was wrong, but maybe to other people it wasn't.
That's a big question, Paul. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Did you just need to get that out your system? Did you, and directed at me?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, couple of things from me. I think as a fan base, because of Amanda, we have come to expect a level of communication and transparency. And I think on the whole, that's what we would like to see. I know that's probably a bit of a controversial opinion. I know that we got some shit for it a couple of weeks ago when I said that's what I would like to see, and people were saying, well, we don't have to. That's fine. But what I am saying is, as a fan base, we have come to expect that. Now, we've had the statement that we've asked for. Has it given us the transparency, and is it completely truthful? And this is where the question marks are arising for me, because it's in conflict with some of the things that we've heard from Eddie, which I do think is very strange, and I'm sure that we'll get into that later. We're talking about it's ruffling feathers, because it essentially is pointing the finger and the accountability for a, let's say, failed transfer window, like, oh, it's not me. Look over there. I haven't been here long enough. I'm just a supporting role. So I think there's so many things that you can actually take out of there. I think he was right to do the interview. I kind of saw this at the Adidas camp as well. Like he's a bit loose-lipped, really. I don't know if he has a bit of a filter, or knows when to stop, or knows what.
But is that a bad thing, Sam? Because I quite like it if he comes out and says, "Oh, this is how I really feel." I like it.
If it's true, that's it. If it's true, but I don't want to. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose Eddie Howe or good staff for the sake of things that he's maybe missaid in interviews because he's enthusiastic. It is an interesting one. I do want his transparency. Like your CV and your past accomplishments are only going to take you so far, and so far from him, we haven't seen what we've wanted to. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I got a super chat in from Nick Thornton. Thank you, Nick. We went into the summer window with a single target despite glaring holes in the squad. So Mitchell is right. It wasn't fit for purpose. Samsonite Dove has been celebrating his 2-year anniversary of membership. Thank you so much, buddy. It's a TTR anniversary. Could be a better day for it with the red and white winning comfortably. Here's to many more years of great content. Thank you, buddy. And Ange Mag with a super chat as well. Thank you, Ange. Evening all. I'm back from holiday. I couldn't donate for the charity day from the USA. Please add this to the total, please. Hope you had a great day. Thanks, Ange. Very, very kind of you indeed. Now, as we expected, the comments that I'm seeing rolling through the chat already, there's very, very different opinions on all this about who is the trustworthy one, who isn't the trustworthy one. I've seen chippers come in and say that, Darren Eales has gone very, very quiet since the window closed. Indeed, he has. There's no, I don't think he was jumping around at the stack by all accounts before the Tottenham game this time. In fact, he kept himself very much to himself. It's a bizarre situation. And, the thing is, Billy, there's some, dare I say, big egos now in that hierarchy at Newcastle. Some very, very qualified people who've done a lot away from Newcastle before they've come into this job. And maybe, certain people are used to doing things their way. But now they've all got to sort of get in line with whoever's the boss. Now, obviously, we're not talking about PIF tonight because PIF, we know they run the show. They own the club. But we know that the chairman is not around a lot. Yes, he'll probably be there via phone or FaceTime or whatever they need to do. But he's not there constantly. And, from an outside fan looking in, I'm struggling to see at the moment who is dictating things or who is at the head of the table. When Amanda was here, it was clearly her. Now, whether she's done right or wrong things, we don't know. But she was definitely the sort of spearhead and the face of Newcastle United. We haven't got a face of Newcastle United right now, if that makes sense.
No, we haven't. I want to stick up for Darren Eales here, actually. I know he was acted the arsehole when he was dancing around and promising things that never got fulfilled. But we don't actually know what his remit is in the job, do we? And if he's CEO, as Lee Charney was, it's his job to get players to sign once they've had fees agreed? I don't know. It may be, like Lee Charnley's was. And if that's the case, if we can't get a fee agreed with someone, then his job's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? So we can't kind of blame him for that. And that was Lee Charnley's remit. He was in for contracts, get people signed up. If we're only after one player and the bids keep getting rejected, I'm not sure what he's supposed to do. I'll be perfectly honest.
Well, I've just put a poll up because I am really interested to see the results of this. Basically, it says, who as a fan do you think is the untrustworthy one? Is it Darren Eales? Is it Paul Mitchell? Or is it Eddie Howe? Because like you said, Sam, Eddie Howe said numerous times in his press conference that he wasn't privy to anything going on behind the scenes with transfers. Yet Paul Mitchell in his interview says they spoke every day for a good length. They spoke on an evening as well.
You can prove that wrong in one foul swoop.
Well,
who was the only player we signed for money this summer? And where did he come from? And who scouted him? And it was a Sula from Sheffield United who Tyndall had scouted for Howe.
Tyndall had scouted for Howe, yeah. So it's bizarre. It doesn't make any sense to me. And many people say, Eddie might be bluffing in his press conferences and just, calming the situation down or just letting it go and he doesn't want to talk about it. But at the same time, it makes things look very silly when he's saying that. And then Paul Mitchell comes out and says something else. A lot of people thought Mitchell was having a little dig at Eddie Howe and obviously a dig at the previous regime since the takeover. It's a bizarre thing to say, but is Eddie Howe happy these days? Or is he just... Was that his little dig at the people above him to say, I want to be involved?
Well, I think
I don't know what's going on.
The issue that I have with all of this is that we're becoming a club that plays its private business in the public light, and that diminishes our power somewhat in the market, in transfers, and actually what we do as a business, which is where I'm concerned now. Obviously the takeovers happened. We've had a lot of turbulence with incomings and outgoings as well. But structurally, a lot needs to change as a business model. Now, there is always going to be teething problems, especially when you're talking about big egos, people with large amounts of experience who come in and want to, tear up the hymn sheet and write a brand new one. So it's a really difficult one. The issue that I've got for me is that we need to look like we're a united front to the media and to the fans, and we're already seeing holes in that. So when we're talking about, we talked about last time, and I really wanted to be unbiased about it, say let's not look in too much about Eddie's statement when he was at the Adidas camp in Germany. But now I think we would be a little bit naive to think that there's not trouble at Mill, because it's just so contradictory between Eddie and what Paul Mitchell said.
Well, this is the thing that gets me, okay? Dan Ashworth, Steve Nixon, apparently Amanda, and others have apparently felt hurt and bemused by his comments. Okay, the previous transfer regime was not fit for purpose. Now, Billy, I'm going to read you some transfers out here, and I want you to be honest and say which one of these wasn't fit for purpose, because I'm struggling. Botman, 35 mil. Isak, 60. Gordon, 40. Tonali, 60. Livramento, 31. And Barnes, 38. Which one of them do you... I mean, I can't work out... I don't think we've overpaid for any of them, quite honestly.
No, we haven't, but it's all of them together. It's where we've overpaid.
Well, yeah, we've ended up in PSR problems, which is I think then what he's thrown at Amanda.
Well, of course it is, and he's got a right to if he's come into that job and he's restricted by what he can do. But it's not that. I wouldn't say it was Amanda's fault. I'd say that was the rules' fault, and maybe she had a plan of getting out of that this summer, which did involve selling Elliot Anderson and Yankee Minty. We'll never know.
And I think off the back of it, we need to. It's probably a bit of an unfair question, because if we look at those players, we're like, absolutely, we have had successful windows under previous leadership. But what he may have been meaning is, in its totality, the process that we have isn't fit for purpose, because we've got no pipeline of players, because we're looking too locally rather than globally, which is what Mitchell's method all hinges on, the type of player profiles that he looks at. So for me, I think he's more referencing the fact of we're too small focused. This is what we need to do. We need a pipeline of new talent coming through when we're watching them from really early stages, going in at the right time for the right profile of player. I think that's what what he's knocking on the door of, rather than thinking, right, it's the actual players that we've got in. I do believe Amanda would have had a plan 100%, because she's a smart, shrewd businesswoman, and the team seem to be a lot more like cohesive. Like everybody was saying the same things. The energy was there. I think we would be a bit naive to look at the interviews that we've been seeing lately. Does this look like it's all, flowers and roses? Not to me, it doesn't.
No, and that's why I wanted to do this show tonight, for a discussion about it, because a lot of fans, like I said, this show has always been about like sitting at a pub, having a few drinks with fans and talking about. That's what I wanted to do the show for, is to get an idea of how we're all feeling as fans. We've got a super chat in from Geordie Meck, £5 super chat. Look at what Howe and Amanda has done before these guys came in. These new egos are unsettling, and Eddie cannot be to blame for this. Well, what I was going to say as well, Billy, is, the talk about PSR, but, maybe Mitchell's looking back and saying, right, you only sold St. Maximin for £25 million. I mean, we all know that was a ridiculous fee to sell him for. And had we sold him for a bit more, maybe things would have been different, because that one stands out for me as a transfer that I don't quite understand. And yes, Maxi had his criticisms, don't get me wrong, but 25 mil, I think, they were talking about trying to get 20 for Miggy at one time. I mean, come on. Was there really 5 mil difference between them two? I think the fee we got for Maxi was laughable.
And I don't think that was down to anyone apart from the people that own the club. Because of where he went to. Straightforward for that for me. Anywhere else in the world, he goes for 10, 15 million on top of that.
Because people are
Saudi Arabia. The thing that annoys me is they're signing has-been players for 40, 50 million and signing players in the peak for half that price.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Makes no sense.
Actually, I'd say the Saudis shitting us from a large place there, because we got scandalously done.
Well, look, it's interesting to say, because we said we keep PIF out of this. However, people are scrambling to say Amanda got this wrong, Amanda got that wrong, and that's why we ended up in PSR problems. But who oversaw the whole thing? Who signed off on the checks? PIF did. So, it's not down to just Amanda. And listen, PSR's a load of bollocks anyway. We know it is. It's crap. But it has hurt a lot of clubs, and it's hurt us in a big way. But I mean, look, I'm gonna put another big one to you here, Sam. I've seen a few comments already coming in. Do Eales and Mitchell want Eddie Howe out? Do you get the feeling that they want a big name manager in? Because there's a lot of people saying that in the comments. The way things have gone, the communication over the last couple of weeks with what seems to be throwing mud at each other, is that a possibility?
Yes. and that's what I'm reading into it. I don't want that to be true. I don't want to lose Eddie. I said last season that I wanted to give him another season to see if he's got it in him. I believe that he does. I believe that some lessons have been learned, and we're already seeing that this season, which is really encouraging. But I think that we're getting a bit of a boys' club built up in there, and whereas previously, Amanda was very much for Eddie, totally had his back and had his corner. But then we're coming out and seeing these statements. I think it's very much Eales and Mitchell versus Eddie. And is that sustainable? Absolutely not. Is Eddie the type of character to allow that type of, I don't want to say disrespect, but like sort of sticking him to his swim lane when actually he likes a broader approach to how he's so invested in the club. He wants something to do with every aspect of it. So I believe that's where it's going to go. And you can't tell me after what's come out the past couple of weeks, if the England job comes knocking, if it hasn't already, he's got to be thinking, that could be a way to go for me right now. That's my concern.
Yeah. Susan Fagan, thank you for your super chat. She says, I think Eddie will go. He's the fall guy. They'll regret it. And that's probably right, Billy, that, he will be the fall guy, because it's always the manager that ends up being the fall guy for mistakes that aren't his.
No, I think he'll leave. I don't think he'll be sacked. I think he'll leave. I think he'll go to England. I think and if he wants to manage just English players, then the England job's perfect for him, isn't it? Simple and straightforward of that. And I've said it all along.
Yeah. Rufia Benissian says, if you look at what Mitchell said, it does make a lot of sense to transfers. He didn't say it wasn't fit for purpose, but that it needed improvement to be best in practice and continually improved. Steve says, I think our problem is the situation has changed dramatically since the takeover. What worked then doesn't work now. ADB, Mitchell wants his own manager, in my opinion. Looney Tune says, Mitchell is just talking shit because he failed at his job to sign one decent player. He had 7 weeks. Is that it? I mean, look, that's a good point as well, Sam, that, is he trying to deflect from his failures in the transfer window by blaming other people? I mean, that's
100%.
People that aren't at the club anymore, he can throw the mud at.
Yeah, absolutely. And nothing can come back. That shit's not going to stick because he's thrown it over the fence. So yeah, I do certainly think that. I think he's probably a very proud man, very excited to come in and get involved in this project. And then when he's sort of looked under the hood, things aren't ticking away the way that he would necessarily like them to. That's not to say that it, was a massive failure in previous. It would evolve anyway. All business models have to evolve. They have to change to internal circumstances and external changes as well. Look at rule changes, positions in the league, what we're vying for, players on the market. So we have to be adaptable. I think my concern is, are we adaptable enough? And if, Mitchell wants time to bring in this sort of, this pipeline, which is what I'm sort of gathering from what you're saying, this new structure, it takes a long time to see the fruits from that labour. And I think typically in the past, Mitchell doesn't have a record of staying at clubs for very long.
That's what a lot of people were saying, that why. Yeah. Certainly when I did that, I did the news show about the interview. A lot of people were commenting saying, well, what has to be asked is why he hasn't stayed very long at other clubs. But the thing is, Billy, I think he was the first man that we did on the Dan Ashworth replacement series that we did. He was the first man that we covered. And I think, after that show and as the series went on, Mitchell was the fans' number one.
And he's the best qualified to do the job. And I think you have to allow him to do the job. And that means having a list with more than one player on it, I'm afraid. And that means he's got to... I mean, Nixon's getting cheesed off. He should be happy about it, because he should be around the world scouting players and giving them a list of players that Eddie Howe agrees with. It can't be just one. Eddie, you can choose more than one. It isn't one and no others. Yeah. That, to me, is where the transfer window went awry. Eddie Howe's insistence on wanting just the one player. It really did.
And if that was the case, Billy, and this is what we all don't know. We're all sort of jumping on, and I think that's what I think this conversation is great, because I think we're all giving each of the leadership decent enough airtime to say, right, was it you? Was it you? I think we're being quite fair here, putting everybody under the microscope. I think typically looking at how things have played out, it does look like we have only had that one player in mind. Who has selected that one player? I think we all have a good idea. Why didn't we have the plan Bs and why didn't we have the plan Cs all lined up? And this whole thing about, Mitchell hasn't had that much time. Someone of Mitchell's caliber, I would have expected to have a Rolodex of really exciting talent, even if it wasn't a marquee signing. I would have expected someone, maybe an unknown coming in, international, unknown perhaps, that could have actually strengthened the squad in other ways, which is pointing the finger to one direction. We wanted one player in this, and this is how it's going. And as for the, what was that comment about, well, we don't want to set a precedence for clubs moving forward about the Newcastle tax? I like that. It's a strong statement. Yeah. But then you've completely blown it out the water by overpaying and putting so many bids in for Gay and then Alanga as well. Like that you're totally shooting yourself in the foot.
That was a panic. That was a panic thing, wasn't it?
I think it was a panic thing.
Complete 11th hour.
But if you look at the news as well, over the weekend, Gahey is our number one target in January.
There's one worse than that. Christ almighty.
Well, I've seen the Anthony one. We'll glide over.
I was taking the piss when I said that the other day.
I know you were, but that's what happens, Billy. Shush. Tom Ruddle says the club would have approved Mitchell's interview. That's why it was the written press. It was a club statement. Eddie is in trouble, and I feel he's the problem. Too stubborn and unadaptable. Stato is in the chat. He says free transfers, contract renewals, loans, sales, different profiles of buys, etc. There is so much we can improve in.
100% agree with that.
But to improve, it has to be all aboard the groove train. Because
the groove train. Sorry,
everybody has to be on that groove train to get things right.
Train.
I don't care what you call it, Billy, but as soon as that pulls into the station on the 1st of January, everybody has to be on it. Because if there's not one person on it, then I can see ructions.
Well, who's driving it, though?
Exactly, who's driving it?
Exactly. Well, who's driving it? Who sets the timetable?
Exactly. Who is going to be pulling that train out of the station? Claire says, I'm really annoyed how we pandered to the Premier League to avoid scrutiny underselling a player, yet Chelsea get their hotel sales passed. Anthony says, people blaming Mitchell. Clearly, Eddie is the one who targeted Gay. So Mitchell coming in and only having Gay on his desk to sort of being shackled to that. Mitchell hasn't had time to review. Do you know what? I'm with Anthony, right?
So am I, yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people having a dig at Paul Mitchell. And I don't get why. Because, look, he's come in and he's had a remit to go and get Gay. But he's also got a remit from PIF that we're not going to be pushed around and we're not going to be outpriced. Whether you think that the final fee that we asked or went in for was too much or whatever, that's what the club decided to do. So Mitchell got the go-ahead for that. But then Palace kept changing the goalposts, which they're entitled to do. It's their player. But I don't understand, or certainly from a fan, what else Mitchell could have done. You know, he's just walked into the club. He wants to do things his way and change the way things are worked. But that takes a bit of time. He can't do it in the transfer window that when he's just been appointed and try and get everything changed in a few weeks. For me, it's impossible. And especially
the role at the wrong time, Paul.
Yeah.
Second the role at a long time. He should have took it now.
Yeah.
And let the transfer window go as what had been before, because he's getting blamed now for something that clearly isn't his fault, if we're perfectly honest. I
mean, it's for me.
If I need to say something, it's like burning us. Right.
Go on.
I think for me, I totally agree. I think we've talked about Mitchell, we've talked about Eddie, who's actually the one who's like directing and steering the ship here. Of course, we should give allowances, allow some bedding in time. It's not going to be quick to change a process or anything. But I think there's an element of influencing skills that I would have expected Mitchell to have. And I think this is where I'm sort of, with some fans when they're saying, well, we expected to bring someone in. I would have expected Mitchell to be able to say, like, listen, this isn't going to come off. If it doesn't, what is the mitigating action to ensure that we still strengthen the squad and we make a vie for those top 4 positions? What is it that I would have expected him to have the level of influence and the relationship already there with Eddie to say, come on, mate, we might not get him. What else can we do for you? What else can we do? So that again tells me the trouble at Mill, that there's just people not getting
but he did. He said to Debo and Disasi.
But who said that though?
Well, like that Tadibo and Disasi both played in the French league. Disasi was at Monaco with Mitchell. So Eddie obviously didn't want them.
Yeah.
If that's the way we're looking at it, because if we believe what Mitchell says, that he had one priority anyhow, and that was Gay or nobody. He didn't want anybody else. We've got a couple of super chats and then a very interesting point. Nick Thornton, another super chat. Thanks, mate. Either Howe evolves under the new structure or he'll be gone. Mitchell is known globally for finding players no one else picks up on. Yard Sale, thank you very much for your super chat over there in Canada. Doesn't matter what your job is, you don't air dirty laundry in public. You can blame past or present employees. It makes a toxic work environment. Mitchell is setting a dangerous precedent. I like coffee. Now, this is a good one because the role of Andy Howe, is that complicating matters, Billy?
100%. And it should never been appointed. It was nepotism to the nth degree. It really was ridiculous appointment.
Yeah. I mean, look, that could be one of the major reasons, Sam. It's he's got his brother in there and
his nephew, isn't it?
Or his nephew, whatever it is. It's family at the end of the day, and that is always going to cause issues when you've got family members within the pack.
Absolutely. Can you be fully transparent when you have loyalties to family members? Absolutely not. I don't personally think so. I think it's great in some scenarios, but when actually you're there and hired to do a very important job, is it going to work? Are you going to get that insider information? Are you going to give the honest opinion to someone who's actually, you're going to be having your Christmas lunch with? Probably not. So I agree with Billy on this one totally. Just don't think it was the right thing to do. Bit naive.
Yeah. Trevor says, just look at City. They used Mark Hughes for a couple of seasons and wasn't until he went they actually did something. I mean, that was that wasn't it? Yeah. Tony Douglas, thank you for your super chat. Eddie doesn't want to sell any player but wants to reinforce the squad. The situation we're in just doesn't work. I mean, that's a good point, and it's worth trying to read something into that, because he sits there on a regular basis and says, we don't want to release this player, we don't want to release that player. But how are we supposed to improve if he won't replace what's already there? Now,
let's be perfectly honest. Given Eddie Howe's transfer record at Bournemouth in the last season he was there, I don't want him to have anything to do with transfer recruitments. I'll be honest. Jordan Ive for gazillions of pounds. People like that,
Yeah.
Dominic Solanke was 4 years away from being a half-decent player for gazillion pounds. They got relegated on the back of his transfer window. He's not a good sign of players. He needs someone there to do it for him. When we get someone to do it for him, he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
The question's got to be asked of him, I'm afraid.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing tonight, asking questions of all three of them, to be honest, and seeing, trying to make some sense of it all, I guess, which is a very difficult task, I have to say. But if we look at another manager, for instance, if we look at the top elite managers, the likes of Pep, Arsene Wenger, Alex Ferguson in his prime, they didn't sit back on the laurels. They're not sitting back and saying, oh, we don't want to release this player. If there was a better player available for the football club, they went out and got that better player and they moved the other player on. That was how they worked. That is how they continually stayed at the top of the league, because they moved players on when the time was right. But we're not doing that, Sam.
And it's interesting because we see the loyalties play out on the pitch, though, don't we? We see the favoritism, and we see the same people, despite form, despite opposition, and players' individual strengths and qualities. We see the favourites all of the time, and that's been the development area. That's certainly what I'm looking into for Eddie to learn this season and showcase that he's had the ability to change from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to be in for a wild and bumpy ride if we don't actually shake him out of that, because it's loyalty to a diminishing degree.
Sean says one player, that's up to the manager. He will live and die by that decision. Looney Tune says, I want Eddie to stay. I enjoy our football most of the time. I would hate to get a defensive manager in to replace him. Yeah,
that's a good point. Like, who would we get in? Who would we get in? Because we want to play
about Rafa, Sam, and Rafa's football wasn't great.
Let's ours ain't been great this season.
Well, no, we've been terrible this season, but we've got away with it so far. But I think we will get better. I genuinely do. I think we've had a rough start, but we've picked up the points somehow. But if you look at the football Rafa played, it wasn't entertaining. We don't want to go back to a manager like that, because Newcastle, since the Keegan days, I guess we've always been an attacking side. Bobby Robson's sides were. I hate defensive football. It grinds on me, even though I know sometimes it wins things and you can pick up points, but sometimes it's just, super chat from Spike. Thank you, mate. A manager has to give a list of 2 or 3 players for the positions he wishes to improve. Yeah. Normally that's the thing, isn't it? The people come out, you say, "Oh, the manager gave us a list of certain amount of players," but that doesn't seem to have been the case this time around. And I think that deservedly you have to ask questions. Ab says the idea that Eddie ran the transfers is risible. What Eddie is correct about is that it is better to bring in no one than anyone just to appease the spoiled brat fans. I can see your point, Abs, but on the flip side of that, like I've just said, you've got to improve. You've got to, and you've got to bring in better players, and you can't just go to the board with a list of one. It doesn't. You can't, and especially when you've got a right wing of Murphy and Miggy, it just does not make sense as to why we haven't covered that position, and that has to be questioned.
I think for me, it's a case of that would be assuming that there's nobody else in the world out there and that we don't have anybody else on our radar. I don't believe that of Mitchell's standing, that he hasn't got people in the back pocket that he's been keeping an eye on. That would assume that we're only going for one player because there's nobody else out there. That's impossible to be the truth.
Super chat from Ricky Ellis. Thank you, Ricky. I know that we're attached to our players, but would we need a big sale to kickstart the next step, like Grealish with Villa, Coutinho with Liverpool? Phil, thank you for your super chat. There is a modern approach to the structure of operating a football club, and we are transitioning that way. Sometimes you lose people along the way. And Simon Muller, thank you for your super chat. Nostalgia and good vibes will only get us so far. Let Mitchell take us to the next level with or without Eddie. Claire says Mitchell offered options, but Eddie done his usual response. How can you work with someone who isn't flexible? And I just wondered how long it would take before he came on. He couldn't stay away. Stato.
Good evening. How are we doing?
We're all right. Can you not just enjoy a bit of time away? I mean, what's made you jump on
my
tonight?
Stato senses were tingling with all the loaded questions from you, so I just had to come away.
Well, go on then.
Well, I don't know if you read any of my comments out, so I'm not sure.
Well, I read a couple out, I think.
Yeah, I personally, I agree with Mitchell completely on all of this. I think that there's massive improvement needed, but we did still make a lot of good signings. I think both can be true. Like we scouted carefully, and we used, it was careful bids for the right players that were going to improve the team. But there's loads more we could improve. You know, our loan signings, where are any? We don't use the loan market at all. Like, not at all. The free transfers have been few and far between. There have been loads of people snapped up. There probably needs to be a look at the wage structure, a look at how we renew contracts, and just signing a greater profile of player and getting more signings in that we can flip for profit. There's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different topics we can kind of go in deeper and improve on that aren't at present. I think they tried, but they definitely needed to improve on it. I think that's fair as well.
Look at this. Jay Devlin, clown program this. See you on match day for the live chat. Are you incapable of having just a normal fan conversation, Jay Devlin? Because that's what this is. It's simply talking about what has been the mainstay of the news at Newcastle United for a couple of weeks. So, as a Newcastle United fan channel, are we not allowed to talk about it? Give your head a shake. Jesus Christ. Another super chat in from John Adams. Is King Kev too old to come back if Eddie goes?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, as much as we'd love to have him, I don't think he'd. Well, I think he'd love to, but I don't think he's too old now. He's just let him enjoy what he's doing at the minute. Steve says, I think the finger being pointed at Mitchell is why he's gotten defensive. If we had given him the time, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Agreed.
100%
I
agree with that.
Niall says, Mitchell can't buy players if Eddie won't play them. You've seen it with Hall. Yeah, but Eddie's got to get in line. That's the thing. He's got to get in line, Sam.
Yeah, I think there's an element of stubbornness which needs to be relieved. I think if we want to move forward and we have this collective ambition, I think what we need to align on is the direction that we're going in. You know, we need somebody to steer the ship and say left a bit, right a bit. But this comes down to, again, structure. This is really defined roles and responsibilities. This is what you're accountable for. This is what you're accountable for, but you will have a say in this. You know, you'll be involved, but X, Y, and Z. You know, have those conversations happened? Because it just seems so conflicting between the two statements. It's causing unrest. It's causing us to have a show based on it.
Yep. Papa Bradley is in the chat. When a top man comes in, you have to make a statement. He's undermined on his authority within weeks. He is on a hiding to nothing.
I agree with that.
He hasn't had enough time, Paul Mitchell. But let's take a look at Darren Eales and what his role in all this is, because he was the one that made the statement before the transfer window opened to say it was going to be transformative. Now, Alex, where has it been transformative in your eyes?
We need to go back and target exactly when he stated that, because obviously, did he know at that point we were going to have a new director of football in? And
yeah, he said it after. He said after Mitchell's. It was after Mitchell came in. Yeah.
Well, maybe he just thought we were gonna get a couple of things over the line. Potentially, we thought we were going to get Tosin in on a free transfer that was going to allow us to push even further on a right wing. I think that was the original plan. I think we wanted Kelly and Tosin in on frees so we could put the money further up the pitch. And I think he, with the best of intentions, it just didn't work. He had good intentions with that, but you can't do that as a CEO. You can't overpromise. You can't do that, because a lot of people, although some people are able to take a step back and understand that he's done that, there will be thousands and thousands of people that will just go, "Oh, you just messed up and you're bad. You're bad at your job." And he's got to take that. He's got to take that on the chin, because he's publicly overpromised. And he's going to have to sit down like a good little boy and whether stay quiet and fix it or apologize. It's one or the other. Now he's got to fall in line because he's overpromised and underdelivered. It is what it is. You just stay quiet. Honestly, I heard Sam earlier say we've gone a bit too public. I'm paraphrasing, and I completely agree. Whether it's positive or negative spins, Amanda was fantastic at it. Not everybody's Amanda. Not everybody has that charisma or that connection with people. Some people have just got it. Whatever it is, whenever Bruno opens his mouth, everybody's just in awe of him. It doesn't matter what he says. Some people have got it. Darren Eales has not got it. Darren Eales comes across as a bit slippery sometimes. Professional experience, it is what it is. I'm sure he's a lovely man, but you can't just create that spark out of
Nobody knows what his role is, though, Saturday, though.
Yeah, but does that mean he needs to come out and clarify that? Again, to be honest, I would rather the club just kind of close up shop now and just go do some proper business, because we've had too much in the public eye. And in fairness, I just wanted to make one point, Paul, about previous signings. I do think a couple of them were a bit risky. I think Alexander Isak as a signing was quite a big risk for that fee. A lot of teams around Europe were unwilling to take the risk on him. There were a few that had been propped up at that sort of level with Jonathan David and him. Was he going to take that next step for that fee? People were undecided. It was a big gamble for us. It's worked. It might not have worked. And it wasn't through professional, magical scouting that's worked. It's also a little bit of luck. You've got to get a bit lucky with transfers that it works, that they settle, they're relatively injury-free, they gel with the team, they adapt to the league. There's loads of things that have to happen. We got a bit lucky with Isak that nothing went wrong. He's injured a little bit. And Bruno as well. I think nobody imagined how much he was going to kick on. So a few of these we got very lucky with. You know, you don't tend to get that kind of hit rate on transfers. We've been phenomenally lucky with how successful our transfers have been. And I think that's down to Eddie and the atmosphere of the club and maybe the quality of coaching sessions and progressing players. But you don't get that all the time. So, but we've definitely got to improve it in every department. So,
I tell you what, some people have got out of the wrong side of the bed this morning. Ab says, for a not in the know show, there is a colossal amount of in the know bullshit being spouted.
Wouldn't be the Sunday without Abs having an outburst.
Well, I guess not. I mean, Jesus Christ, it's a conversation, Abs. You know.
Well, I mean, Friendly Challenger said maybe it's not luck. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But I do think every transfer there's an element of luck. That's my personal opinion. You've got, there are loads of things that could go wrong. They could miss their best friend from high school and just be bad for a year. Like, people, they're humans at the end of the day, and things can go wrong.
Where's the comment going? Paul says, I know it's controversial, but Eddie going to England solves a lot of problems, and in my opinion, would be the way forward for our club. I want to see us win a trophy soon. Super chat in from Chippers. Thanks, mate. Does anyone think us going for Elise in the window, especially dealing with Palace and Gay, made it too easy for them regarding what funds we had?
Not really, because it was pretty public how much they wanted for Elise with his release clause. So any club in the world knew we had £60 million.
Derek says, fact is, the club is bigger than Howe, Mitchell, and Eales. If one of them is the problem, you get. And Abs is back with the cartel club can move players on for numerous reasons. Well, yeah.
We struggle to move anyone on, which is another area that we need to improve on.
However, cartel clubs have saleable assets. Our ones that are saleable aren't assets to anyone. No one wants them.
Yeah. Speaking about Mr. Eales, we have to talk about the report that said that he made a specific call to PIF to complain about Amanda and Mirdad. And, that is how the traction started on them leaving the club, Sam.
And if that happened, where are our torches and pitchforks? I would be devastated to think that was the case. But again, who knows? I think we're giving fuel the fire here. We know what the media is like over Newcastle United, and they can just run riot with what's going on at the club at the minute. We don't know that that's been said. I think it's been alluded to that Eales was upset because he wasn't allowed to do his job to what he was told that he was going to be able to because of Amanda. And now him stepping up and trying to be what Amanda 2.0, and like to Alex's point, he just doesn't have the charisma. He's about as much fun as a wet dressing gown sleeve sometimes. It's just really forced fun, and nobody wants that. So it's hard to get right. But again, we're not in the know whether that took place. I would be devastated to think that they've been thrown under the bus after all of the amazing things they've done for the club.
What do you think, Alex?
I agree with Sam. We don't necessarily need another Amanda. The golden retriever's died. You don't go and buy another golden retriever the next day. It's not going to replace it. It's not. Well, sorry. Okay, bad example, Paul. I'm very, very sorry. I didn't think about that one. For anybody who doesn't know, Paul did have a golden retriever. Bad example. It's not the done thing, is it? You give it a bit of time to breathe. I am very sorry, Paul. That was a complete mistake. It's fine. But you give it a bit of time. You can't. It's not an instant replacement for that. Not a like for like. And I think we've got to see Darren Eales for what he is, but he needs to just be himself as well. What maybe that is him. Maybe him dancing around on stage is Darren Eales. I don't know.
We should have got Wayne sleeping in, shouldn't we, as our CEO? The fact of the matter is, the press are going to make up stuff anyway. So I think the club thought, right, or Mitchell thought, whoever the club. Let's get out and give our. Let's get it out, and if they're going to make stuff up, they're going to make stuff up anyway. So just get our point of view out first. I can understand why they did it, to be honest.
You know what, Billy? I've got to probably a counter to that though. Let's get our point out, is what you said, and I feel like this isn't getting our collective club statement out. This is getting one individual's out. I think that's maybe Listen, why aren't we maybe filtering what he's talking about, lads, before you go out there on media and saying all this stuff, because it's not painting a good light. It needs to be a united front.
Yeah, I think it clearly isn't, though. I don't think Eddie Howe likes the role of a sporting director ahead of him, because he was like that with Actress as well, wasn't he?
I know, but if in all fairness, I mean, look, this rule wasn't around. When I was growing up watching football, and when it first came around, this sporting director role, there was a lot of people a lot of managers didn't like it. They didn't like being undermined.
Necessary, though.
I think it is it's a necessity, definitely now. But there was a lot of managers who didn't sign up to it. I mean, Sam Allardyce made on numerous occasions said in public that he hated it.
Yeah, but Sam Allardyce has never run a top-end club, so
no, he hasn't.
He's irrelevant
he's a
in that
dinosaur.
conversation. He's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a club who wants to try and challenge, and they need to be brought players and ideas from Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Peru. You need to peruse Austria, Portugal, the African, all of the African leagues, and just everywhere. Even in Asia, you need to go and watch university teams. There needs to be a profile of U16s, U18s, U21s, different physicality profiles, technical profiles, who's going to be sellable, usable for the first team, who's going to help the academy. Eddie Howe can't sit down and sift through all of that. Even if he's brought shortlists, it's too much. There needs to be a separation. And fine, Eddie Howe can go, look, I personally want a right winger that's going to fit this team and how I play. And that is how Pep works. That's how Pep works, because it's been on documentaries where they will sit down in their boardroom and Pep goes, right, I need this kind of profile. And they will go and scout that kind of profile. And then Pep can go, yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. And it's how it works, because we need Eddie to be what he is, what he does best, which is coach and manage. So it's got to happen at some point if we want to be a top club.
100%.
So with the chairman being over last week, Billy, what do you reckon? Do you think he's had a meeting with them all to try and, I don't know, sort it basically and see, and try and, negotiate the positions for everybody and how we will attack the next transfer window? Because it's weird that Mitchell came out with that interview after the chairman had been over. So because a lot of people were saying he's had a bollocking and that's why he's come out with what he said.
I think he was over here specifically for that, to have a meeting about the transfer window. Why else come over the day after it finished, or 2 days after it finished? Without a doubt. And it would have been a conversation about unity and getting it right next time. And next day, Mitchell was making that statement. I don't know. We're just guessing at what was said, but they've got to do better in the transfer windows. They have to do. That's 2 on the trot now. They're failing, in my opinion.
So who would you like to see as the face of the club, Sam? Because I think we need one. We need that face who can connect the fans with the club. I think we do. Because I don't want to go back to the days where we don't have anybody as face of the club.
Man City have a face of their club?
Yeah, Pep.
Do Man City communicate with their fans? I don't know.
Not we don't the way Amanda's been doing with us.
I'm talking about what's happened since the takeover. And as a fan, I love that communication that Amanda had with the fans. She kept us in touch with things. And I want to see that. I agree with that.
That doesn't happen in any club, though. Arsenal, that doesn't happen.
I don't care about any other club. I care about mine, and I care about what happened when Amanda was here. That's what I like to see from a football club communicate with its fans. Right now,
she was a one-off.
Well, we've got 3 people coming out with different things.
I think for me, if I may interject.
Indeed, you can.
Thank you. I agree with Alex to an extent that, Billy, what are you doing, man?
Scotland have taken the lead against Portugal in Portugal.
Well, shave my ass with a rusty razor. Bloody hell.
That's how interested I am.
Yes.
That's his little, hang on a minute, something's happened in a game.
Scott McTominay scored.
That's Billy's breaking news signal, guys. So whenever he does that, we have to pause and go to Billy.
Got it. Right. So for me, I agree with Alex to an extent. I think we should have a period where we kind of shut down and we get together around a table and figure out what we're going to do moving forward before anybody else comes out and tries to be the club spokesperson again. Equally so, I love the communication with Amanda. That is going to be something extremely difficult to fulfill, especially as a senior in the club as well, who's going to be so connected, but that actually has the gravity for us to actually believe as a fan base what that person is going to say as well. So we're talking about somebody new coming into the club who has the charisma and charm to be able to speak and connect with fans and have the transparency and the leadership quality. Are we ever going to get that again? We were so lucky to have it in Amanda. I'm not sure that we will, but we need a face, we need a head, we need a spokesperson who speaks to the club mentality. Just not right now, in my opinion. Get our ducks in a row.
Get our ducks in a row.
Ducks in a row.
Billy, what do you reckon?
I think we've made a massive own goal in allowing Amanda Staveley to walk out the club, to be honest. I really do.
I can't disagree with that. Look, there's many. Mark Thompson says, I agree with Paul. I don't care about whether something happens at Man City, Arsenal, or any club for that matter. If it works for Newcastle, it should happen. The problem is what and how it's communicated. My shortlist for the face of the club: Sam, Shearer, and Amanda. So there you go. Amanda was a massive loss. She was brilliant for the whole of the club. Why didn't we make Amanda CEO? Maybe she didn't want it. But then again, she brought Eales in, and then Eales.
But Amanda was missing bits of experience in the footballing industry, wasn't she? That was the whole point. And she was open to that. She was honest about that she needed to bring the right people in because she herself wasn't competent in those areas. Like she's a highly intelligent woman and is happy to open up on that point. So, I
hear you, Alex, but I think, that in any type of structure, you've got to understand your own strengths, but hire for your weaknesses. Get a really strong team around you. Yeah, she had gaps, but what she brought in terms of strengths, my goodness, probably outweighed the weaknesses
massively.
that she had.
Maybe this is the PIF own goal then, because and this is a big if because we're not in the know, this is if there was a bit of a feud and Darren Eales wanted more control and that kind of de facto pushed them out, then PIF essentially made a choice. You would imagine, unless Amanda and Mirda just went, no, we won't let you make the choice, we're just going to go. But if this happened, which a lot of journalists seem to think it did, if it happened, then PIF made a choice between Darren Eales and Amanda, unless she's just gone of her own accord, which is also a third option. But yeah.
Well, she said she went because she felt people felt she was stepping on their toes, and she didn't want that to happen. Now, whoever that was, it had to be Eales because it wasn't Eddie Howe. She wasn't managing the team, was she? So it had to be Darren Eales. It had to be.
Yeah, well, that's what was reported as well. So, listen,
I'm going to have to disappear, guys, as well. I thought I would just jump in for 10 minutes.
No problem.
So
we'll see you soon,
I will be back for a Wednesday show, if we're doing a Wednesday show.
We will let you know, mate, because we're going to have to jiggle shows around with England playing on Tuesday as well. So
I'll be in the sky on Tuesday night, so I will not be around. Unfortunately,
taking mind expanding drugs, are we, Alex?
Just a flight, Billy. Just a flight.
I mean, you kind of do have a bit of a vibe about you tonight, mind, Alex. You kind of look like.
I've had a very long day. I've had a couple of terrifying experiences today. I've only just started drinking. It's Japanese plum wine. It's not even Sam wine.
Of course it is.
Yes.
I've had a traumatic day.
Yes.
I've had a
Japanese finest.
I was in. I'm not joking.
Made of Japanese plums.
I was in a tunnel dug by the Germans during the war in Poland, and I was wandering at the back of the tour group because I was reading signs, and then they switched lights off in the tunnel in my section. So I was in a concentration camp constructed tunnel alone in the dark and had to sort of meander with my phone torch a few hundred meters back to find the group. It was a little bit weird, a little bit eerie. So I've not been that scared as a grown man before. It was very creepy. But so yeah, long day.
Well, get yourself a drink and some kip, Alex. We'll see you shortly.
See you soon, everybody.
Take care, bud. Right, let's just get the results of the poll, and then we'll have a quick chat about the women's kickoff today. So I put on the poll: who, as a fan, do you think is the untrustworthy one? Who do you think the fans have voted for, guys?
Eales.
Eales.
It is Darren Eales. 61% of the votes, and we've had over 700 votes on it. 61% think Eales is untrustworthy. Mitchell was 20% and Eddie Howe 19%. So a clear winner there, which, I mean, I had a feeling it would be Eales, to be fair, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But it was a good chat about that, despite a couple of people thinking, oh, you're in the know and you're doing this, and I don't want to listen to this. It's fan chat. It's what we're here for. It's a fan channel, for the love of God. Anyway, Sam, good point for the women today.
Yeah, certainly. I know that a lot of our TTR fam were in the chat as well, so it was great crack. A lot of people giving some stick to this Mackham who was in there, like trying to say how rubbish we were, but we as a collective, we absolutely nailed it. So thank you for everybody for joining today, watching that on the YouTube channel. Yeah, a really interesting one. I think given that we've just come up to this league as well, we really showed some positivity and some strengths in there. Came away with the point, which was great. A few development areas to take away, which I really look forward to speaking about when we next do the Lasses show, but got the point and we're in the new league, so let's do this. Exactly.
Now we will have the War Lasses show possibly Wednesday this week, because obviously England play Tuesday, but we'll work that out. We'll work it out.
Oh God, it's not an airport departure, mate. You haven't got to announce you're unsubscribing.
Who was that?
Friggin' mighty, TJ Richards.
What did he say? Sorry, but you lost me tonight and have unsubscribed. Bye! Everybody wave bye to him. Everybody say goodbye and don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, you fanny. You can't have decent conversation. We don't want you here. Simple as that. Try and have some decent conversation.
When I was watching the women's earlier, they were winning 1-0 and look by far the better side. How did they finish?
It was 1-1.
Yeah, absolutely. New signing came in, looked great, missed a couple of chances as well. So I think we looked really, really strong. For me, Billy, we just seemed to put our heads down and lose composure a bit after the first 30. Really ramped things up, and our sort of the backbones of the teams, like Body was absolutely phenomenal, as was Potts as ever. Really, really great. Our new keeper as well, Moan, who we signed from Sunderland, really, really worked for it. So she was fantastic tonight.
Well, that's why you got the same. There's so many comments waving bye to him. It's class. Oh man, dear, hilarious. I mean, who was it that put that in?
TJ Richards.
TJ Richards. Okay, nice. Let's see. But
does Paul have like a secret like hit list?
I have a little black book, Sam. Yes.
I think he's making a note of that. Why?
It just goes in my little black book, just for when I come to power. When I come to power, I can get rid of these people very easily.
No, you can give them shit when you see them sneaking in the chat in a couple of weeks' time because I think they've made a mistake. God.
Well, Ben says
see what else is out there.
Ben says we need to do the Jacob Murphy wave to him.
I think he's already gone, isn't he?
How did he do it? Was it that? Bye.
I know he was laughing at him when he was doing
it. Cynical Jim's asking if it was me on PD's channel the other night. No, I don't know who that. In fact, I have a hunch of who it was, but it wasn't me. I actually had a nasty injury over the weekend. That I dislocated my shoulder on Friday night.
Goodness.
Yeah, one of the dogs that we're looking after decided to charge at me and caught me head on just under the shoulder blade. But I managed to put it back into place. It's yeah, I was biting on a wooden spoon, Billy. But it's happened to me before, so I knew what to do.
Why for you to do that?
I haven't been able to move or use my right arm very much over the weekend, but it's in place now. But I've got to go and get it checked out tomorrow. So, but there you go. Yes, and a big well done to Adam P and anybody else who ran the Great North Run today. Well done and congratulations on that. Absolutely superb. Apparently, Acid dislocated his shoulder on Friday as well. Yours for very, very different reasons, I would imagine, Acid. Falling out your loft, that's very different to being attacked by a crazy dog. But there you go. Anyway, that is the show done and dusted tonight. Thank you, everybody who's had an adult conversation in the chat. It's been a really good chat tonight, just to get people's opinions on things and have a talk about it. We're not putting the blame on anybody. We're just talking about each individual and seeing what's gone wrong or things like that. And that's what being a fan channel is all about. So if you don't like it, I don't care. Quite frankly, if you don't want to take part in an adult conversation, then. But we will always be doing this, and that's why we have such a loyal following who like to get involved in all the conversation. So thank you very much, and thank you for your super chats and memberships. Mods, thank you again, and of course to Billy, Lady Sam, and a brief appearance from Alex. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, folks. And we'll see you all from, probably tomorrow. And we'll have the England game. We'll have the build-up to Newcastle away at Molyneux, of course, as they take on Wolverhampton. We'll have the women's show. We'll have all sorts this week. So give it a like, give it a subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you all very soon. But enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, folks. Good night.
Away the lads and lasses.
Come back and check out the